So what would you say are your current keys to running a successful dispensary then?
Staff is really the only key. You have to have great staff. You got to have people you trust and like and want to be there. These are hard jobs. They're retail jobs. It's not the most exciting stuff in the world. There's a lot of repetition. Anything we can do to try to make it more exciting is always in our best interest. Any good business, you want great customer service, you need great staff.
Welcome to the Dispensary Marketing Podcast, where we interview the top dispensary owners and experts in this space so that you can stay up to date with the latest trends and strategies that you'd otherwise miss out on. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Alex, thanks for hopping on the Dispensary Marketing Podcast. Really appreciate you taking the time.
My pleasure. Happy to do this. It's a really cool project that you've been working on here, and happy to participate.
Thanks. So why don't you tell the audience who you are, the name of your store, and where you're located?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Alex DeGroot. My store is called The Goods, Community Cannabis, and we are at 255 Elm Street in Somerville, Massachusetts, which is in the center of Davis Square, Somerville. For people who know Cambridge, Somerville area, it's sort of based around squares. So we are smack dab in the middle of Davis Square, Somerville, which is sort of the more famous of the Somerville squares.
Nice. So how did you get into the cannabis space as a whole?
Always was a user from the time of being a teenager, before I probably should have been. But after having spent a long time in real estate, I worked for Redfin for many years and was there through its growth from a small startup to a publicly traded company. I sort of burnt out on real estate and wanted to try something different and new. I loved building things. I like not only just working with my hands, but also just literally creating things, and building a store, building a team, and in a place that was sort of a new marketplace, sort of Wild West, if you will, just was really attractive to me. Just thought there was a lot of opportunity, but also thought it was just a really fun industry to take part in. That it would be exciting in these early days, and that it would be a challenge. That it would not be something that would be simple to do, and that I could sort of dig my teeth into.
Right. So you said something interesting about burnout. So I'm very curious. How did you come to the realization that you were indeed burnt out and not just tired and you needed like a little break? And what did you do to kind of overcome that?
Yeah, I mean, it was probably a burnout as much from just sort of a highly corporatized environment as it was sort of any physical or mental burnout. I mean, they say in the world of startup that you need a month for every year that you were there, and I was there almost 10 years. So I needed a good 10, 12 months of actually just decompressing. I think when you go through anything like that, you're suffering from a very low level of PTSD because it's, rapid change, lots of hirings and firings, lots of turnover, lots of deadlines, and, just a really high level of action required on a daily basis. And so you are usually very, very sort of stressed out, and not in always the bad ways, but in the good ways too, in that you are involved in something highly exciting. So I think after that period of time and what had been really rapid growth, I was just sort of ready for something smaller. So I'd say I was probably as much burnt out on just sort of large corporate, meetings all day, flying places, long work hours, long days, lots of people to sort of answer to, as well as lots of people answering to you. And I think I was sort of yearning for something smaller and something more, maybe wholesome, I would say.
Right. So did you take off that year or so?
Oh, absolutely.
And then have a good transition? What did you do in between then? Did you kind of relax, stay at home? Did you travel the world? Kind of, what did that, I guess, recovery transitionary period look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I had little kids, so I spent a lot of time with my children. I spent a lot of time working on my home. I spent a lot of time doing nothing. I got involved in sort of art projects. I sort of, tried to keep myself busy, keep my hand in real estate in some way. So I was sort of actively trying to pursue things. And then after about, 10 months to a year, I tried to embark on a different sort of startup scenario. I think I wanted sort of back in on it, but in a different capacity. And, so really, it flies. The thing about having that kind of time is it sounds like it's really long. It's really not. It goes very, very quickly when you take into account holidays and all the things that sort of take up time in between. And, I was very lucky. I got to just spend a lot of time with my family and spend a lot of time with, at my home. And, it was also not easy. It's not easy to work all the time and then not have work and accountability and those kind of things. So, at some point, sleeping too much, eating too much, enjoying myself a little too much, or even not
Right.
enjoying myself too much. So, as much as, again, a lot of people think, well, that sounds great. Yeah, it is for a little bit. And after
Yeah.
a while, you do start to sort of go a little stir crazy. And so I
Right.
think I lasted, maybe the 10 or so months before I was like, okay, I got to do something else again. But I
Got to
did
get
try to
back into it.
decompress. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. And then I
So
spent
then,
a time building a company after that didn't end up really
okay.
working out. And then I found myself back in sort of day-to-day real estate. But while looking for opportunities in different things, thinking I should try
Right.
something different. I should change. I should try something
Right.
new.
So, you kind of answered my question, like, what was that transitionary period looking like? So you didn't just hop straight into, working with the goods right after you did that. You
No.
embarked on like your own kind of personal thing to see if it worked or not. And then you ended up working with them after that, right?
Yeah, it took about 2 or 3 years because I went back to sort of traditional real estate, had my own
Mm,
company, my own firm, really just doing my own business as a real estate agent and broker, working with other agents that sort of worked with me. So I spent a couple of years in that making money, always with the eye towards I should try something different. And this is around 2017, 18. That's when we sort of started going, we had medical come in, and then recreational was starting to, it had become, passed as far as different towns and cities here in Massachusetts had passed and wanted to take on recreational cannabis. I had been a medical patient. I went and got my card. And then through that, started meeting some people who were involved in the industry. And so, had started to sort of get a flavor for it. And at that time, there were really only, a handful of medical providers throughout the state of Massachusetts. It was those crazy good old days when they'd give you like $200 worth of credit just to come in and shop their store. So I spent a lot of time driving around to the different medical places, checking them out, using my $200 credit, which was always sort of a matching, right? Spend money, get
right.
money. But very enticing and got me out. And I saw a lot of different stores. So I started to get a feel of, oh, I see what this is sort of about and how it works, and sort of being fascinated. And then, knew some people who were already in it, who
Mm,
were on the sort of the early stages, the front lines. And from that, I made an investment in a company that was opening up that I really liked. And through making that investment, met my business partner who I have now, and that's when we embarked on opening the goods, which was in and around spring of 2000, really sort of January of 2019.
right.
Um, I sort of started on this particular execution. Again,
Right.
before that, I'd been investing in this company and keeping myself busy with real estate, mainly multifamily and investment property sales. So I sort of had a real estate background, which is helpful when it comes to uh, opening cannabis stores, because you kind of need to know a little bit about real estate. I was no commercial real estate expert. I was a residential person, but I
Mm,
just knew enough about it to know how to get deals done and how to sort of look for property and try to find ourselves someplace to land, which ultimately actually my business partners did find. And we created a relationship with the landlord on a one-to-one basis. And, the real lesson with that was everybody else was sending in sort of offers. And I think there was about 20 people who offered on our space
mhm.
um, through their brokers, trying to kind of tell them how it was going to be. And we went really much more hat in hand to meet them on a personal level, to sit with them, to talk with them, to explain to them why, we were a good choice. And I think at the end of the day, we know from them that ultimately won us out. And so, first good lesson about the cannabis business and learning, this is really business in general is go by yourself. Don't work through intermediaries, so we weren't working through a broker, even though I was when we were. This was really trying to find individual spaces through individual landlords, through personal relationships, and and meeting people directly. Again,
Right.
not in an arm's length.
That's interesting because your location is probably one of the highest leverage, things that you can start investing in, right? So instead of
Absolutely.
like by putting in work into finding a good location, they say with everything, location, location, location,
100%.
if you don't have a good spot that has good traffic, then it doesn't matter how good of a quote unquote deal you got at the beginning. If you have a terrible location, it's just going to make life a lot more difficult for you later on down the line. So you're just kind of pushing that, later.
Yeah, we did know that much. We knew that Class A location was going to be key for the survival of businesses going forward. In the
Right.
early days of cannabis in Massachusetts and as most states, you were relegated as a business person to some very strange locations, office parks, industrial areas, like really off the beaten path that are not sort of traditional retail areas. And when there aren't that many stores, well, people will travel to almost anywhere to go find this product. They were used to sitting in parking lots and going to have weird conversations with sketchy
Hmm.
dudes in their apartments. So when you stuck this thing at the back of an industrial park that nobody really ever been to or driven down in their town unless they had to go, pick up a UPS package or something, um, it was fine. People would show up and they came in droves. There were lines around the block. But, over time, we did kind of recognize that was not going to be true and that sort of classic retail metrics were going to have to be at play. And so, we went for really Class A spots. And the nice thing about our location and somewhat unique to the city of Somerville is that Somerville did not, with their recreationals, relegate people to these outskirt areas, these strange industrial areas. They allowed it on Main Street. And we are quite literally on the center of, Elm Street, which is, again, sort of Main Street, Davis Square, in the middle of the square, surrounded by coffee shops and restaurants and, real businesses, offices, and things like that. And so we were very lucky to get a space that is truly like, great retail. It is urban. If you're going to come here and drive, you're going to have to park in a parking lot sort of a few blocks away and walk over. But you're going to, encounter on that walk a great place to get some coffee, an amazing place to get
Right.
some food, maybe a really cool T-shirt or clothing store, and us. And so, we're lucky to be in this trade area, but we are a urban store. A lot of these stores are suburban parking and are really reliant upon cars. We are a
Mm.
foot traffic business, and so that's a little different. Um, and took some learning and doing because there weren't many of them. Certainly when we opened, we were the first in the city of Somerville for recreational. There were medical providers here as well, but the way that they did their sort of thing, they basically wanted locals to open and then the sort of MSOs, who really are the other ones
Mm.
in town, could then open theirs. So we were able to be the first open recreational store in Somerville.
Right. Nice. So, you came from real estate. That's where your existing skill set was. But, we know that entering the cannabis industry, isn't just one skill set or
Yeah.
even two, it's wearing a lot of different hats. So the real estate clearly went well. We had a chat previous to this saying it went well as best as it possibly can because, COVID happened and all of these
Yeah.
things. Right. So, aside from that, like what were some of the initial, roadblocks that you encountered during the startup?
Yeah, I mean, securing space is really not easy. Raising money is certainly not easy. Although in these earlier days, people were a lot more, pocketbooks were more open. People were very excited. Lots of people had made really big exits from the early stage medical stores that were here in Massachusetts. So there was a lot of excitement around it. But finding Class A real estate, again, not easy. And then figuring out whatever um, the procedure for the town was going to be, of which they were,
Mhm.
developing. Somerville was literally developing this procedure as we were going through it. We knew that we had to put in an application, so they had an application process, but we did that very quickly. They opened round one in April of 2019. We only secured our space at the end of April of 2019, but by May 5th or 6th of that, the next month, we had submitted our application so that we could get in line quickly. That takes a lot of sort of skill sets to be able to read those and fill them out correctly. And, they're really asking you to sort of plan your whole business out on paper, somewhat like a business plan, but really much more extensive because there's so much regulatory requirements in there as well. Put that together, which is, hundreds of page document, and put that into the town and then, start their application process with the state. And then really waiting on the city to give you the go ahead, which for us took 18 months. And so, we had to hold this rather expensive piece of real estate, for 18 months before we knew we were going to be a yes or no. some of that was COVID, and due to the fact that the city had more important things to deal with, which was a global pandemic. But that took a lot of time and effort, and caused a lot of these gray hairs in the beard. Because it could have been 18 months with a no, and that would have been quite devastating. And that has happened to people, but we knew that we had the support. In that 18 months, we had really spent time as much as we could getting to know folks, joining the Chamber of Commerce, really being very tight with our landlord, who was very gracious to lower our rent through most of COVID, knowing that, we were being kept waiting by the city of Somerville and having, a lot of confidence in us putting a store here and really wanting to put a store in that space. It took a lot of fortitude, a lot of strength to make it through those months. And then, that's just the beginning of the process, really, because once the town says yes, then you go into your whole application process and building process and permitting. So, we started this in, again, sort of January of 2019 when we met, call it May of 2019. And then we didn't open our doors until November of 22. So, fully 3-year project of, I'm still hustling real estate, trying to sell property as well as do this as much as I can. But that's hard because you get pulled in sort of two different directions, and a lot of waiting and a lot of finding money, raising money, spending money, trying to be extremely frugal so you can keep the lights on. I really just the rents paid and the various people that you need to hire, architects, builders, consultants, to get you through this process. So, it was a long struggle, but interesting through all. I mean, it's all brand new in many ways, so it's a big puzzle. So as stressful as it was also exciting and fun.
Right.
And sitting here all those years later, it is, certainly worth it. It's just, for anybody who's thinking about getting into it, even now, it's, we were in the earlier stages when it was a little bit harder. It's still just a very long road, and very hard. And, you really do have to get very lucky as well as work really hard.
Right. Lots of paperwork, lots of money, lots of firework to get putting out. So would you say the challenges that you had to go through then are similar to the same challenges, compliance issues, more paperwork, or would you say the problems have just kind of switched a little bit? And if so, what would those be?
We certainly live under, a heavy compliance burden, but nothing you can't figure out and do. I wouldn't say it's, arduous now that we're in it and running it. Once you sort of set your systems up, once you have your SOPs, once you know how you're going to proceed and you build your business around how it needs to function, then it's just sort of in there. There is too much regulation in our business. It's no question. The states and Massachusetts is not the only one that's guilty. They're all guilty of seeing cannabis as a cash cow, as well as a sort of redheaded stepchild. They overregulate it. They put the wrong people in charge of trying to regulate it often, but they don't really know any better. And decision by committee is never, a great way to sort of run things, but, that's how governments work. So, what you learn very quickly of working in the cannabis industry is sort of the machinations of local government, which again, you can rail against all you want, but it's the system we live in. So you just have to accept it as well. And you just have to sort of figure out how to keep your sanity through it all. And, it's rarely with bad intentions. It's just that people want to move slowly in a place like Massachusetts, which is always very conservative. They want to move slowly. They want to do things as correctly as they can. They also just don't know, they don't know what they're doing. These cities, this is a brand new industry. There was a lot of fear and just sort of unknowns around what was going to happen with these businesses. Were they going to be these centers of crime or things that they sort of thought they might be? No, it turns out, we've never had a single incident here at the store. Somebody fell down out front once. A guy tripped on the sidewalk. That's about all we've really ever had here. And we've had to bounce customers for being rude and disrespectful, but never like bad. Just, we think very highly of our staff. We do not want people to have bad days by, customer poor behavior. And so we'll put up with you for a while, but if you're too much, you're gone. We just, it's not fair to the people who work here to have folks come in and sort of treat them poorly. But, the cities and towns to begin with, they didn't know what these would be like. And again, in retrospect, it's very easy to say like, oh, it was a total overreaction, and it was. But I try to play devil's advocate and try to be empathetic and put yourself in the shoes of somebody who didn't know anything about it. They just didn't know, and so they were throwing a lot of things at the wall, trying to sort of garner as many opinions from the different departments in the town or the state to tell them which way to do things, Department of Health, whether it be the police, paramedics, and so forth, and trying to just sort of serve all those masters. And so that's how we sort of find ourselves in this sort of highly overly regulated. Now that we're through it, and I think people have realized how sort of innocuous in many ways our industry is, and also really how well run because of all of that regulation, really created a lot of very good habits. It's time to really start pulling back on them, and that's what happens, and that's what's happened in the Western states where they're always ahead of us, and that's what's starting to happen in Massachusetts. Is they're starting to realize like, oh, okay, this is a little draconian. We can probably pull back a little bit on some of this stuff. We'll see though.
We'll see. Change
is hard and takes a long time, and it has to be done again with the consensus of everybody and not just a few. And so, it's an interesting time for the business now. I was lucky to have come in sort of in the early stages of rec. I didn't get in the early stages of medical. It was really sort of the Wild West. But always exciting, always interesting. And as far as we're concerned, worth it, worth the struggle.
Right. So what would you say are your current keys to running a successful dispensary then?
Staff is really the only key. Yeah. You have to have great staff. You got to have people you trust and like and want to be there. These are hard jobs. They're retail jobs. It's not the most exciting stuff in the world. There's a lot of repetition. Anything we can do to try to make it more exciting is always in our best interest. But staff, any good business, you want great customer service, you need great staff. And you want, to have a great business, you need great staff. Happy customers are made by happy employees. So we try our best. It's not easy. These are interesting and trying times to be the boss of people, and there's a lot of turnover that's just associated with our industry. Also with retail in general, it's no different for coffee shops and bookstores, and people come and go, and it's part of the job and part of the life. But from my perspective, and other people would have other perspectives, it's staff. It's the people who are in here and the sort of way we talk and greet our customers. It's really the most important thing. Prices and all these things, they're important, but you have all the prices in the world and it's not a welcoming, warm place. People don't want to come into it. People don't want to.
So do you have like a really good training structure? Do you have a really good incentivization structure? Do you have a really good hiring process? Kind of like what is your, I guess now your key pillars to having good staff and making sure that they're the ones smiling and saying hello when people come in the door and asking them how they are and so on and so forth?
Yeah, yes, we have those things. Do we have the most robust for all of those? No, we're only a single operator store, so it's not like I have the resources to build massive training programs. No, a lot of it's on the job. No, it's the attitudes and the vibes. It comes from the top. It comes from everybody who's involved. That it's just sort of a place of service, and there's a lot of honor in service. There's there's these sort of old adages that go back to sort of, English service and things like that, like butlers. It's like the way you treat people is a reflection of your self-respect, not like your lack of, meaning, the worse you are to me, the nicer I'll be to you. That's my strength. And also that how you hold yourself and how you help people says an enormous amount too. So we just take it seriously. But again, it's really something that's a culture. And the culture is created by the earliest people who were here and their willingness to sort of buy into the vision of trying to be a good customer service organization by trying to be helpful to people, to try to, take pride in our work. It also makes the day go faster if you're enjoying what you're doing. So, we've always tried to have been just sort of a customer service culture. So when people come in, we just try to be nice. We try to be friendly. We try to smile. We try to have long conversations with people. We also designed our store in a certain way as to sort of lean into that. We had spent some time in the West Coast as we were designing the store and seen some of the models that they have, particularly in the NorCal area, San Francisco, Sonoma County, where you walked into stores and they had things on shelves. And it looked more like a store and you shopped it more like a store. We thought, well, that makes sense. That's how, stores work. And this sort of like deli thing, you might call it. Deli's actually services now when you weigh out weed. It's got a different meaning, but I think of it as a deli counter is where you walk up and you make an order. And well, there's not many businesses that actually do that. There's really one. It's called a sandwich joint. Maybe you go to ADAP and they go back and get some parts for you in the back. But most places that are a store, you wander around and look at stuff because it's the more natural way to decide how you want to buy something. And some of it's tactile and you want to finger things and you just want to look at it. You want to pick up things and see what it feels like. And also it's just that we're conditioned as humans. Stores are, the first cave store probably opened, a few weeks after people realized you can make money by selling things to people. So, it's just ingrained in us. So we really tried to build a store that looked a little bit more like a store. So we have a very large sales floor. Our overall footprint is about 4,800 square feet, so quite large.
Nice.
And our sales floor is probably almost 1,400 square feet, with lots of sort of like shelving and display places, cases, walls, monitors. We don't do menus on walls. We really have all of our screens. We do have 7-8 screens in the store, but they're all meant for advertising, which we switch up on a regular basis. We design ourselves. We also work with our vendors. And then we really started with and still do, but even more so in the beginning, with people with iPads wandering the floor, talking to you about product, with product in front of you, in front of them on an iPad. Not necessarily revolutionary, but we were doing it different than anybody in Massachusetts were, and we were doing it different from what we saw in California as well, which was sort of somebody with an iPad standing there talking to you about it and showing you. We were really showing you the shelves. Okay, so you're interested in Wana? Well, here's our Wana display. Oh yeah, you can take this down. You can check out, these are a 20-to-1. This is a 1-to-1. Really getting into this consultative sort of sense of how to talk with customers, because there's a lot of questions. We have a really neat demographic here. We're in a very cool city, but it comes from somebody who just turned 21. We love it when somebody literally, hey, it's their birthday, they're coming into the dispensary for the first time. We love that. Two people, in as old as anybody I've ever met, coming through the store. So we had to figure out how to talk to all of those people and how to inform them, and people who are very into the very specific dab culture, to people who are first timers. And sleep, sleep's an enormous part of our industry. A lot of people are here for sleep and pain. So how to be able to talk to folks about those, and, how the products that we have might relate to helping solve those problems, or at least, help them with those problems. So, we really went for this sort of high touch customer service, environment from the beginning. Let's talk to you, let's make your order. Then you go over there to the checkout, and that's where you check out and sort of, do the money part. But we really wanted this interaction. And we have it today. We had to learn, as a lot of businesses do, we had too much staff to begin with. We were overstaffed to begin with. And, that's fine. That's just sort of a life cycle of the business. And so over time, we've figured out when we need our people most. But, what I really like about the system that we have come up with here is that it allows us to flex. We can have one person standing behind the counter just filling a single order on a Monday when there's not that many people, but we can have 4 or 5 people on the floor with iPads, plus our kiosks on a Friday night when there's 30 people in the store and they all need help. So, it allows for a lot of flexibility. And again, we're lucky we have this really big, beautiful space. And so, we, again, from the beginning, designed our store, our culture, and really even just our own philosophies around helping people around high-touch customer service.
Right.
I think we've done a pretty good job. You can't keep everybody happy all the times, but we have a really high rating on Google, and we're very proud of it's not. I'm not kidding you. It's already happened twice today that people come in and are like, I love this place, and really, you guys are the best, and you've got great prices, and you're really nice, and vibe is a big thing. I mean, certainly for me, vibe is a big thing. You have to walk into these stores and feel comfortable. There's a lot of stores you go into, you feel like, I don't know if I'm cool enough to be in here. Or there's a little bit of a dismissive attitude. Like, we're a bunch of geeks. Like, we all are sort of cannabis geeks. And we're talking about Star Wars and Pokemon, and we're just not, we're not too cool for school here. We're sort of friendly and, and also very inclusive. We have a very cool, diverse staff as well, which is also something we're very proud of. it's just sort of like, that's a reflection of our community too. But we're very lucky. This is a really great community to do this in. Somerville is a very neat place. It is the Brooklyn of Boston. And it's even more than that because it's so diverse, from arts and entertainment to technology. And then you have, two of the largest, smartest universities in the world are within miles of here. So we get truly exceptional people come through our doors. To say that we have rocket scientists as customers is not an exaggeration. And professors and people who are highly regarded professors and famous people and things like that will come through our doors. And, very, very lucky again to be where we are, because not everybody has that. A lot of communities are, they're different communities. They're fine there, but they're more of a commuter community. They're more of a certain type of demographic. Here it really is diverse and inclusive, which is, again, really fun.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there, but yeah, you mentioned this a few times. You say the word lucky, and I think there's a little concept about the surface area of luck, and like the more you do things, the more you actually get lucky instead of being lucky.
Sure.
And it sounds like you've been putting in tons and tons of work into making sure that the staff is good, the store is good, the look and the feel and the vibe is good. Because look, I've probably spoken to over 100 dispensary owners, and a lot of people just kind of look at business differently, right?
For sure.
But it really looks like you and the rest of your team have been putting in a lot of work into just kind of making sure that, like you say, that vibe is the non-pretentious vibe, the vibe where, the 21-year-old who just turned 21 to the, I don't know, the 80-year-old maybe that wants to walk into the store and stuff like that. So it sounds like you're doing a fantastic job.
Yeah, people are great. 1% of folks are not so great, but 99% of them are fantastic. So, and we're lucky because people walk into a weed store usually in a pretty good mood. It's like they're here to buy something fun. They're usually want to talk to you. They're, a lot of the time want to hear information. They want to share information. They want to share stories. They want to tell you about the first time. So it's like, you got to be pretty cold to sort of like not sort of get caught up in that and not have fun with it. And at the end of the day, it makes the day go faster when you're enjoying what you're doing. And the only way to enjoy what you're doing is figure out how you can enjoy what you're doing. It's not something that somebody else can do for you. So trying to empower people to say that, like, I can't make this job any funner for you. You have to figure out the ways to make it fun for you. Because I can't do that for you. I can only tell you how I find the job fun. And that's usually by, again, staying busy, keeping upbeat, talking to people, enjoying the product. There's a lot to know there. There's a lot to talk about. So studying up when you can and really just, again, having the self-confidence and self-respect to be able to, again, be of service, not be, sort of serving. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's again, it's different to help people than to sort of be told what to do.
Right.
And so, we try to keep it flat too. We have managers, we have team leads, but everybody here is pretty equal. And we owners, Chris and myself, and I do have a co-founder, Chris Vining, who is essential to having built this. This is not something you do by yourself. In fact, it's really hard to do by yourself. I'm always blown away by folks who are like, oh, it's just me. I'm like, how the hell did you get through that? Without each other, I don't know that either of us would have been able to survive all the things you have to go through to get here, including whatever happens day to day now. And it's good to have complementary skill sets. I was sort of the artsy, creative type. He's sometimes more the procedural. He handles the money. I handle the marketing. It's good to have those complementary skill sets. Trying to have two people who are the same, you end up stepping on each other's feet. There are things that he's good at that I know I'm not good at, and vice versa. That's really important, actually, and hard to find. So we got very lucky in that as well, is that we had sort of different areas that we were happy to sort of get into. Not that we don't cross over all the time. It's just that, sure. You have to.
Just like any relationship.
But we also do every job. I was sitting at the reception right before this. After this call, I'll go and probably sit in fulfillment for a while. And when we're here, we're doing a lot of different things, but we're also working shoulder to shoulder. It's important for them to understand that we work shoulder to shoulder with them as well. We do not think of ourselves as above any of these jobs. For the longest time, and it was in the beginning, we had a cleaning crew. We got rid of them pretty quickly. Chris and I would literally clean the toilets and mop the floors. you have to be able to do that kind of stuff as an owner. You have to have that sort of commitment to it. And it's also that like we wouldn't ask the employees to do it. It's not really part of their job. So it's, we'll do that kind of stuff. Over time, we've been able to shift some of these things. We still end up cleaning the toilets and mopping the floors when we can. But, again, it's important that people that you work with understand you're willing to do whatever it is that they'll do, whether it's taking orders or fulfilling orders or sitting at reception all day, taking IDs, which is one of the more annoying parts of our job, frankly, the reception thing. That's one of those things we hope they'll get rid of over time. Because you don't walk into a liquor store and have to like show somebody an ID before they'll let you into the store. Computer. And it does create a drag on and it's a hard job. I mean, we have people who sit and do it, but it's just sitting there all day. You can only surf the internet for so long and, try to give them things to stay busy, but there's not a lot. It's just sort of, so that's one of those things that we hope they'll loosen over time.
For sure. But before we get into that, I've realized that after all of these interviews, dispensary owners need a safe space where they can ask the questions that Google doesn't have the answers for. So what I've done is I've created the world's first dispensary owners mastermind group, where it's an environment of like-minded individuals who can help make each other's lives easier and also make more money in the process. So if that's something that you're interested in, please check out the links in the description below. Now on to the rest of the show. No, well, look, as a business owner, you have to do what's required, because if you don't do what's required, then you don't have a business anymore. So
nobody else will.
Exactly. So you mentioned it before how you're also responsible on the marketing side. So it seems like with the good real estate location, that obviously plays a massive part into it. Your staff, how you handle your customers, those are really good indicators of how people end up coming back into the store, because if you just give them a bad experience the first time, they're never going to come back. So what's your general marketing mix on how do you get people who don't necessarily know you exist into the store in the first place?
Yeah, good question. It's always something that we're working on. SEO, SEM. That's a right off the bat. We work with Rank Really High and Cannabis Creative Group. So we work with a couple of different firms that are well known for doing that. So on the web, trying to be every time you Google dispensary near me, that we're the ones showing up, and then we rank high as we possibly can and pay for ads online. So that's the big one. That's a good way to let people know. We engage in social media. We've had our account shut down, unfortunately, so we lost a lot of early followers that we built over a good time. It took I think we've been about a year, and then they shut us down. So we're sort of building that back up again. That's hard though, because the rules are constantly changing, and sometimes it's hard to tell how effective it is. It seems like it's all the cannabis people all liking each other's stuff, whether it's really like your customers doing it, but you have to do it. Certainly the website, just the design of the website, we went with a overlay on what is ultimately chain functionality for e-commerce, and wanted our own look and feel for our site. We thought that was important, as opposed to relying on the very sort of generic Dutchy or Jane sort of out of the box solution. So we wanted something that sort of makes it. And email marketing. We have a very large email marketing list, and so we are not constantly trying to on a respectful basis reach people out. So like today we have a clone day coming up. It's the first time we've done that. A lot of people have done that many different times. Being a city store, we just hadn't gotten around to it yet. Right. So we're doing a clone day. So I had an email today that was a clone email that went out at noon, and I think I'm already sold out of my clones, or I'm going to come close to it.
Nice.
So that's effective. And then we have weekend specials. We were known very early, and we've sort of moved away from it as we sort of changed our margin mix for margin of doing daily specials. So we have a pre-roll Monday where it's like all 1 gram pre-rolls are basically $10 a piece. 3 for 30, 4 for 40, 5 for 50, all the way up to whatever you want. And we had a 2-tin Tuesday deal, which was 2 1906 tins on Tuesdays for the price of 1. We had a 1 on Wednesday, which was 3 for 75. We have a 2 for Thursday, which is 2 8s for discounted price. And then we run weekend specials, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Every weekend we run specials, and it's always a discount on usually flower, pre-roll, edible, vape, drink, concentrate. So we're always running sort of a new special on every weekend. And so it's a lot of reaching out to people with those specials to get them to sort of come in. But over time, we had to learn how to protect and keep our margins strong. Giving away products great, but it's not a way to really grow a business. It's a way to get people through your door, but you really need to continue to pay for things. So,
Right.
over time, we've really learned how to strike better deals and run smarter promotions, and have it more of a 360 where it's like there's a post, there's an email, there's an in-store, and there's a web, all together, and a pop-up. So it's all sort of feeding each other.
Yeah.
And again, it's just something we've had to learn over time because we were not retailers. And in many ways, we are not retailers, and that was our strength, is sometimes also our weakness. I think mainly our strength, though, we had to figure things out, and through figuring it out, we've sort of figured out interesting and newer ways to do things. So again, I do think sometimes our having not come from a large background in traditional retail was helpful. We would know what rules we weren't supposed to break.
Right. Trial and error. Sometimes it could cost you a lot of time, but more times than not, cost you a lot of money as well. But at least you learn something at the end of the day, which is most important. And I know we were chatting about this earlier, but we can kind of discuss after this a little bit of the sales analysis with GPT and things like that we were talking about before, that I think would be super, super interesting. But yeah, again, we can chat about that in a little bit.
Yeah, we've learned a lot. I mean, it's that's really been one of the biggest educations is product mix, buying and pricing.
Yes.
Because our industry is caught in a little bit of a death spiral with price. They really think that it's a chase to the bottom, which it's not. And if you look at the more mature markets, they do have $15 rates, but they also have $50 rates. And there's a reason for that, because there are people who are figuring out how to establish value. In the thing. It's not just TAC, the 30+% THC, strain sort of, always new different names of strains, right? Like that's sort of moving away from that. And, and the customers are becoming a little more educated, but there's still an enormous amount they don't know. And sometimes they don't really care. They don't necessarily care as much about this stuff as we do. They want what they want, and they sort of want to usually, and we're in the Northeast, they want it quick. They want to get in, they want to get out, they want to get on with their lives. And so, learning to temper and make our menu reflective of the people coming through our door is something you have to learn over time. And again, protecting your margins to make sure you have a safe and smart business. We don't like to participate in driving for the bottom. We will always have products that are more cheaply priced, but they tend to be products that are not as high a quality. And that's sort of a trade-off to it. People think, over time it's just going to be, you're going to get the highest quality stuff for nothing. It's like, it's not the way businesses are going to work, or is it going to? Also, the reliance on sort of THC and TAC. The analogy to the alcohol industry is like, no, everybody isn't walking to Total Wine looking for the Everclear every time, right? There's like give me the stuff that'll get me the most.
I want
drunk,
the moonshine.
Exactly. And there are people who want that. You have that on your shelves for them, but like they're the minority. They're not the majority. And I think what we're seeing over time is that people are moving away from the THC. I'm not a fan. You get into, first of all, 30% are lies, and we know that. We know that the testing is a little bit off, right? We know that there's
a little bit.
Just think about it as a physical property. If you say you hold something in your hand, you think if 30% of this is oil, this would really be a lot squishier than this is. So we know that that's a little bit, but even still, like whether you want to call that 30 is really 25, 25 is really 20. I don't particularly enjoy the stuff that is too strong. I'm an older guy, but like I never really did. It's too strong for me. But I love a well-balanced one, which is just like, again, like a well-balanced wine or beer or something. I'm not into, taking the super alcoholic shots. Like I want a nice balanced drink. Like, and so I think we're starting to get there. I think people are getting there. It's just going to take time to get them to understand that, maybe an 18 to 19% flower is actually fantastic. Maybe it's exactly what you want, as opposed to give me the 28, 29. And you're like, well, I'm having panic attacks. It's like, because you're smoking way too strong of stuff. Like, of course you're having panic attacks. It's, and again, the sativa indica mix, the hybrid, but, I also, again, I'm sometimes a bit of an old fogey. I really hate the names of a lot of strains. Just think it's so childish. I just think as an industry, if we really want to take ourselves seriously, we've got to get away from having what sounds like teenage boys name our strains. It's just silly. It's just going to lend itself to being what is ultimately a juvenile. We, particularly my business partner and I, really disliked the juvenile aspect of cannabis, which I would also call a West Coast aesthetic. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think it is a time and a place. It represents what was the early parts of the industry. But it's a grown-up product for grown-ups, and it should be marketed that way. And it's starting to really happen. But in the early days, it was really like too like reliant on, again, just sort of a cartoony version of, oh my God, we can get high. Like, yeah, of course. Like, it's not a big deal. It's called the end zone. Act like you've been there before. It's like, it's not, it's just, we don't have to be so sort of gobsmacked with the fact that we can get this stuff. So, I really am a proponent for, getting rid of some of these, really stupid, strain names. Albarino, what a great name for a strain, right? But it's the name of a wine. Like, wine industry does a really good job of naming, grapes and things like that. Beers have done a pretty good job too of that, like, naming things in a way that beers can get a little silly, but like sort of things that are more evocative and feel a little bit more interesting, grown up and sort of exciting. So, there's a long way to go in our industry, but like it's rapidly evolving, which is nice. These things are happening very quickly. That's one of the exciting things about being in cannabis is that it is a very, very fast moving business. If you think about how much it's just changed in the year and a half that we've been open, it's crazy. And there are too many stores. I think there's no question about that. But that's very common. There was the coffee wars, the hamburger wars, the frozen yogurt wars, these retail wars, the convenience store wars, the liquor store wars. These are the cannabis wars, and it usually happens. There are too many of them, and then it sort of consolidates over time. And people who do the fundamentals of retail well are usually the ones who survive. And then there's usually some sort of corporate consolidation that happens along the way as well. But license limits in places like Massachusetts make that difficult. You can only own 3 stores here, 3 rec, 3 med, so they're trying to change that as well. That's something that's being talked about right now in Massachusetts, as well as removing that cap to allow for really the larger entrants, the larger players to come in and start buying out some of the smaller ones. And that's a lot of that is done also with the thought towards equity, which is allowing some of the equity businesses to cash out by giving some of these bigger people be able to pick up more stores. It's interesting. We'll see where it goes. It's a hard thing to know what the right answer is. I think you just keep moving forward.
Right. So I think that transitions perfectly into my next question is where do you see the future of the cannabis industry heading?
Yeah, just that, like there's too many stores. They're going to sort of eat each other's business, but people who sort of block and tackle the right way and have a smart sort of plan are usually in a good location, is someplace that sort of supports it. Will probably survive. I think other people will exit over time because they'll just not be the level of businesses that they thought. Right. I don't know if that for a long time it was the thought that so many more people were going to convert over. Now people are leaving alcohol in large ways, and I know that alcohol sales are down. I don't even like to really loop the two together. Alcohol is a wildly dangerous, very destructive drug that were to ever come back around for legalization would never happen. It's just too dangerous. It's cultural, it's ingrained in our society, so at this point it's not going anywhere, but to even put them together is terrible. Or even tobacco, which is, again, a major killer of people and truly much more dangerous than, proven. And both these things are proven.
Right.
The fact that we get looped together is, again, sort of crazy. Cannabis, not good for you. Not good for teenage brains. Don't do what I did and start smoking weed at 16. Not a smart thing to do. Wait until your brain gets fully developed into your 20s to really start taking on these things. Give yourself a chance. But, as far as like the real dangers of cannabis, not particularly. Even with dabs being 99% THC, nobody's yet to overdose on it. You know what I mean? You can't really kill yourself on it. You can certainly mess your life up by not being responsible and accountable, but pretty actually mundane stuff. And, frankly, I've always thought of cannabis in more of the realm of coffee. It's certainly more potent than coffee, but coffee for the same thing. If you brought coffee back around, for a look at it, they'd be like, well, this is pretty intense. Like, this is a lot of caffeine. This is a little dangerous. You have 8 or 10 espressos in a day, you could kill yourself. Like, it is actually, there's some danger there. But people use cannabis a little bit more like they use coffee than they do sort of use it like alcohol, right? People come in here, we know, are getting high throughout their entire day. Lots of people do it. And for them, it's really, for a lot of people, that allows them to be perfectly functional. Like a cup of coffee. A lot of people use it as if coffee, pick me up, something to help you sit and get through the day. That same is not true for alcohol, right? If you're hammering drinks all day long, not a good look.
Right.
Not going to be healthy, and not good for your body, and not good for your life. I wouldn't suggest getting high all day long, but we know there are people who do and function perfectly fine doing it. So, I'd love to see the temperature turn down on cannabis for that reason. And so for that, the future of the industry is as the temperature gets turned down on what we are as an industry, that it starts to fall in line and look a lot more like traditional retail industries. Again, somewhere between coffee and alcohol, somewhere between there. Social consumption is really still working itself out. I don't see that, sort of being done quite yet to some place where I think it's sort of interesting. I think there's a lot of potential there. I think there's a lot of ways for people to take that opportunity and turn it into something truly unique and interesting. We'll see how long it takes to get there. And a lot of it has to do with the regulatory schemes around what you can and can't sell, bring in, can you smoke? Like you can't smoke indoors in most places. What kind of air handling systems will you be able to smoke joints inside? Is that something people even want? Selling it inside, is it a dispensary? Can you use it there? Can you take it with you? As they figure out these questions, but I know in the future there will be some amazing social consumption sort of businesses,
right?
Truly cool experiential kind of things. We have some neat ones that around here. We got high yoga that definitely happens around. We have Lit Knits, which is a high knitting group that meets in our community room. We do have a community room built into our store.
Oh, nice.
That we use for lots of different things. There's classes, there's a bong decorating class that goes on in there almost every 2 weeks that sells out every time. Lit Knits meets every Thursday. They get high someplace else. They come in as a knitting circle. It's about 12 to 14 people who read on a regular basis and come in and do that. And, as we get into it and be able to open up and hopefully, I don't know if we'll ever be able to do social consumption here, but thinking of it as a potential for us to go as a business someplace else. Would love to start bringing in, more and more of these interesting, particularly arts-based stuff around that.
Right.
But, I can tell you that there will be a lot of pain in our industry going forward. The oversubscription, the fact that there's too much grow and too much retail will cause a lot of pain. There will be pain and it'll happen in the newer markets as well. Our industry right now really runs on new markets. All the talent sort of moves from state to state. We've already seen it here in Massachusetts. Sort of all the folks who were here for the beginning of it have all sort of shifted over to New York and New Jersey. And the focus is shifting over to New York and New Jersey. And it seems like there are some lessons being learned along the way, but not really. There's still basically an overexuberance where it's like, the overspending of money, assumptions around how much business you're going to do. And we made them too. We thought this business was going to be a lot bigger than it was. We're still very thankful and happy for the business we have. We thought it would be a lot bigger, but I don't know that as many people, as I was sort of saying before with alcohol, I don't know if many people are converting to cannabis as they thought there was going to be. Turns out people have always been able to find this stuff. It was just harder back then. But the people who wanted it were going to get it, and they're getting it now. And are there new people coming to it? Yeah, but it's not like maybe the waves that they thought it was going to be. I think they thought it was going to be like massive waves. And also on the heels of this, you've got, psilocybin and magic mushrooms now, making a big charge as well. And, starting to really, there are states now that are full blown looking to go for legalization around that. That'll be an interesting sort of mix. And that's a totally different product than cannabis and probably should be a lot more carefully regulated, just for the fact that it really can cause really, intense mental experiences.
Yes.
But,
that's a way to put it, for sure.
Yeah, but they're everywhere, right? I mean, we all see it.
I agree. Yeah,
they're everywhere, and they're becoming more commonplace, right? It's more than like it's like people from CEOs all the way to, truck drivers are all now into mushrooms. Like it was
Yeah.
that way. It was sort of a hippie drug for a really long time. And
Yeah.
now it's sort of being widely accepted. And, they're using it for mental health reasons as well, which I think is great. Um, as a recreational drug, again, it worries me because you just lose your mind on that stuff,
Yeah.
not like literally, but while you're on it, causes you don't want to be driving, you don't want to be any of that stuff. So
Yes.
it does have some dangers to it, but I think the future of our industry is bright, but I think it's going to be constantly changing. I just think there's going to
Right.
be a lot of change, and we're still very early on. And again, you got to look towards the mature markets to see where they are, and they're still going through a lot of this pain in
Right.
California and Colorado, in
Yeah.
particular in Oregon, where too many stores, too much product, too much grow, price crashing, a lot of broken hearts and broken, tough stories. But at the end of the day, they'll still be there.
Yeah.
The industry will
Yeah.
still be there. It's not going anywhere. It's not going to destroy it. It's just going to take some shaking out.
100%. 100%. So we also have a segment where we ask the previous guest that we interview what question do you have for the next guest, and then you can have the opportunity to ask the next guest a different question. So their question is when you got started in this industry, did you have an exit plan?
No, I didn't really have an exit plan, but I like exits. I've been part of exits before, so I certainly would like to have to make an exit at some point. But no, not really. Like it was more like, let's build these things, and maybe somebody will come along and take you out of them. But having been through companies that have exited before, you can't really worry about it. You got to just do what you do well. It's like competition. Right. I don't really worry too much about what my competition does. I really worry about what I do, what we do here on a daily basis to make our business great. And so you can't worry about exits. You have to really worry about execution. And if you execute well, then exits will come. But you can't really worry too hard about it. And people who seem to be too caught up in sort of like, oh, this is a great way to make a lot of money. Well, maybe. Everything's a possible way to make a lot of money. It's all execution. So chances are, if you execute well, an exit will happen. But you can't worry about the exit. You have to worry about the execution. And if the exit comes, fantastic. But I can tell you, having been part of exits, that money is not does not solve your problems, and it does not give you purpose in life. You have to figure out what you want to do every day, get up and do it, and enjoy what you're doing, whether you have $10 or 10 billion. Even Elon Musk gets sad. It's not sort of like the end all be all by any means. It makes 100%. Your life easier in one way and much harder in others. And I'm by no means a rich person at all. I've just been around enough of it in my lifetime to tell you that purpose is way more valuable than money.
Agreed.
There's purpose in this business. We do a lot of stuff within the community. We give away. The Goods is not just like sort of a name. We do a lot of good. We gave away almost $50,000 last year without any tax breaks for that to local charities and organizations. We give, constantly to art organizations, to artists who put their stuff in our store, and we don't charge. I have a vintage store that it operates out of my store that we don't charge anything for them to do. We have people who bring their products and sell it on our shelves. We work with the Homeless Coalition, the Domestic Violence Coalitions, anybody around Somerville who has organizations can come to us, and we'll give of our time and our money. And that helps find purpose. Like that's the purpose for what you do kind of good things through your store. It's also great advertising for your store, so it's a total win-win. It's kind of a no-brainer in many ways. So without purpose, exits mean nothing. Truly.
Right. And what's the question that you have for the next guest that I'm bringing on?
I thought about this. I think I would ask them, like, how much do you consume, and what does your consumption look like as you've sort of grown your business? Are you still a daily user? Are you a rabid user? Do you find it essential? Because I've met lots of people who don't even use the product. They believe in it and they like it, but like it's not even. So I'm always interested to just hear like what's your use instead of something business, like what personally, like what's your use pattern like, and what's your thought on use?
Right.
Because I think it does change over time for people. And I would caution everybody who uses this product to do it in moderation. It's like anything, you shouldn't be doing it all the time. If you are, it's not a great idea, but you should use it to enjoy yourself. And when it becomes an addiction, and it's not physically addictive, but it can be mentally addictive, then then there's a problem. Don't fall into that problem. I think we trust that the grown-ups that we work with and that we sell to know that line. And, I just think it's important for us as business owners to also recognize it. Be
Right.
careful and be smart with this stuff.
100%. 100%. And
Don't
lastly,
don't do that.
correct. Do not give it to kids.
Yeah, do not give it to kids.
That applies for a lot of things.
Yes.
So lastly, where can people find you / the store if they want to get in touch?
Yeah, always through the website. You can find us at goodsforall.com. I'm Alex at the Goods. Alex at the goodscannabisco.com is my email, but you can always just go through the info on the site. I'm the one who catches all of those. And you can find us at 255 Elm Street, Davis Square, Somerville. Open 7 days a week, 363 days a year. So we're always here.
Perfect. Well, Alex, I just wanted to say again, thank you for taking the time out of your day for hopping on the call. I can tell just based on this very brief interview that you're somebody that is like really open and willing to share, right? It's not about kind of holding secrets and keeping things to themselves. Again, I mentioned it before, but you did use the word lucky, but I would switch that out and say that's a lot of hard work, right? It's lucky that you got the location, but you still did put in the work to do all of these things. But I think that just kind of goes to show the more humble nature, of what you have going on. Immediately when I asked what's the key to running a successful dispensary, you didn't say, well, I am the best or anything. You immediately said staff and team and all of those things. And you were, very open and shouting out your partner and mentioning what your skill sets are and what his skill sets are and stuff like that. So again, it was an honor to have you on the show. Thanks again for sharing. This is a really, really fun one.
Yeah, this was really fun, Brandon. Thank you. And love to do it again. And thanks for reaching out and thinking of us. So.
Of course. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Dispensary Marketing Podcast. My name's Brandon Kwan, and I'm the founder of Cannabud Marketing, the #1 marketing agency of choice for dispensaries, both in the United States and in Canada. If you ever want to get in touch with me about any marketing strategies, tips, and tricks, I can definitely help you. Just go visit our website at cannabudmarketing.com. That's CANNABUD marketing.com, or just check the links in the description below. Until next time, talk to you later. Bye.